Welcome to the Science of Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Mukanga, and each week we'll explore how gratitude transforms our lives through powerful stories and insights. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Science of Gratitude podcast. It's always a pleasure to be of use one way or another for God's glory. So today I have a great guest here with me, Miss Dara, and she's going to introduce herself. Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here with you today. My name is Dara. I go by Dara Leigh. That is what a lot of my platform is on, is Dara Leigh. Gosh, my testimony is very long. There's lots of testimonies I could give to the glory of God.
But before we go into that, I wanted to ask you if you would please tell us, what does gratitude mean to you in your own terms?
In my own terms, what gratitude means, oh my gosh, being grateful for what God has done in my life. If it wasn't for the Lord, I don't know where I would be today. It's just thanking Him every day and for all the blessings and the favor. I mean, He gives us blessings and favor every day. Sometimes I think that we miss it sometimes, but just being thankful for everything we have, for the breath we breathe every day, the opportunity to be here every day. To me, that's gratitude. Just being able to see the beautiful sun outside, being able to enjoy the people that God puts in our life every day. I mean, it's all those things. That's gratitude to me.
I love it. So what you're saying is just zooming into like even the minute details, the very mundane details. It doesn't have to be something great that happened that we need to be grateful for, but just anything that we can think of, we can be grateful for.
That's one of the things that the Lord just really, it's made a difference in my life to be able to stop and thank Him every day throughout my day. Yes. Thank you for just getting from one place to the other, driving in the car.
Yes.
Just being able to get up and step outside and see the blue sky, or just being able to make it through that appointment that I had to get through. Just every little thing, just being able to share the time with my children that I get to have with, every little thing. And so one of the things I started last year was I started a grateful board, and I put one in my house. When I got to go visit Terry Savelle this year, she has a great big board in her office. But so I started a board this year, and I put it in my living room. So I have sticky notes that I put on it every day of things that I'm grateful for. And it's just a reminder every day, especially one of those days when you feel like, oh my gosh, haven't gotten much done today, or, we all get in that place, but So I started doing that. So that's just a little tidbit for people out there.
Oh, that's nice. Listen, I'm going to take that in myself. And I really love how you said to take every little stop, like you leaving from point A to point B, and just thank God for that. And not just wait for the end of the day, or, only when you start the day, but even throughout the day. I really like that. And the board.
Yeah, I just started doing that. And it's really made a difference. And even my kids, I have grown kids. And so even my children, they come over to my house, and at first they were like, what is that?
In the living room.
Yeah, it's in the living room, right smack in the wall. And they're like, I said, it's the gratitude board, and we need to all start being grateful for that. So they've kind of started adopting that themselves. So that's kind of cool to see that. Yeah.
We can start a movement. Okay, I'm joining in. Thank you so much. So so now would you tell us now about your the gratitude story, what you wanted to share with us?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I'm grateful for. I guess my biggest gratitude is becoming a Christian and knowing the Lord and learning how to put Him at the center of my life. I have walked through so many things, which all of us have our own journey in life, and we walk through things, but I was widowed at 36 years old with 3 children. Wow. And prior to that, 30 years ago, I and two of my children and a nephew of mine were in a horrific auto accident where I was pinned in the car. And
What?
and so, and my back I was literally crushed in the car. So,
What?
I
Oh,
was,
goodness.
I was going to take my husband some dinner at work, and it was about a mile and a half from where we lived, and I put the kids in the car with me. My daughter was a year old, my son was only 4, and he was in the front seat with me, not in a car seat, because back then you didn't have big car seats for kids. And so he's in the front seat, buckled up, and my nephew was sitting in the back seat. He was only like 12 at the time. And we stopped at a stop sign, and I started to go through the intersection, and this lady hit me. I didn't even see her because it was getting dark and she didn't have her headlights on, and she hit me.
Oh, my goodness.
And I got pinned in the car. It was just by the grace of God. It was all of God's grace that I survived and that my children were not hurt. My son got a little cut on his head, but the kids weren't hurt. But my nephew actually, God healed his neck because his neck was actually broken in that auto accident.
Oh, my.
And he actually unbuckled. He was sitting behind me and he unbuckled his seatbelt.
And you didn't know about it?
I knew that he had unbuckled his seatbelt to reach over into the floorboard to pick up my daughter's pacifier because she was kind of fussing. So he unbuckled his seatbelt when I was at the stop sign and picked up her pacifier. Right. And as I started to cross the intersection, he still hadn't sat back up, which was really a blessing because when we had the accident, he was laying across the seat still. And so the metal from the wreck from my car would have cut him in half if he hadn't have been laying across the seat.
My God. So what?
Yeah, it was crazy. And it took them 45 minutes to get me out of the car because I was pinned in my car. My seat where I was sitting was literally pushed over to the other side of the car. It was crushed. My seat was only about this big, about 12 inches, and I was still in it. And so it broke my pelvic bone and my back. All my ribs were broken.
Oh my goodness!
It was really bad. But and I was left as a paraplegic in that accident. But you've seen me, and
I have. She walks. Okay, she's not just sitting on a wheelchair right now. My God, I never guessed.
I walked, and God healed my back. It wasn't an instant healing, but I had my auto accident in December. It was on December 30th. Yeah. And I started getting the feeling back in my legs around March of that year, the next year. And I had been in bed for all that time. I had, healing from all the wounds and the broken back and the pelvic bone and all that stuff. I was in bed. And but I started getting feeling back. I started getting these pains in my legs and my feet, and the doctors kept telling me it was phantom pains. That's happens sometimes when you get amputated or you're a paraplegic where you don't have a feeling. And they said it was phantom pains, but it was really actual pains. I was really having pains, but it took another doctor that I saw to really listen to me. And so they did more testing on me and found out that my nerves were actually responding. And the doctor was like, fortunately, this doctor that I saw was a Christian, and he believed me. I told him, I believe God's healed my back. And he said, well, let's test you. Let's see if you got any kind of nerve activity. So they did a test on me to see if I had nerve activity, and I actually had nerve activity in my legs and my feet. But it took me a year and a half of therapy and being in the swimming pool. They put me in the swimming pool and they did lots of therapy and having to learn to walk again. And I mean, it was a process, but I think that's what people need to know sometimes is that God does heal us. I mean, we are healed through Jesus
Yes.
Christ. We
Uh-huh.
are healed and whole
Mm-hmm.
and well.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that healing isn't instantaneous for us. Sometimes we're walking out that healing, just like when Jesus healed people in the Bible, he didn't always it wasn't always an instantaneous thing, but he would
Right.
tell them sometimes to like pick up your mat and go, or
Yes.
he told the blind man to go and talk about, or he told the lepers to go and to talk about
Yes.
their healing.
With the
They
priest.
actually had things they had to do first to walk out their healing, and that's kind of where I was. I had to walk out my healing. I had to, and it was hard. It wasn't easy, but I learned a lot through that. But I've been walking for 29 years now.
9 years.
You know, and doing lots of things. I ride a bike. I mean, I do. I do everything everybody else does, but
you have a regular life. Wow.
Yeah. So
who was around you to kind of like get you through the process when you were at home, laid in bed and all that? Who took care of you?
Well, we lived we were living in San Marcos, Texas when I had my auto accident with my 2 children and my husband, because he was working for Kinko's, that used to be a copy place. He was working for them as a manager there when I had my accident.
Yes.
And my parents at the time and my family lived in Houston. So after I had my accident, my husband actually took me from San Marcos, Texas to a hospital in Houston, because the night I had my auto accident was on the 30th of December, and the attending doctor that was supposed to be there for emergency wasn't at the hospital. He was at a New Year's Eve party the day before. Yes. And so he had them actually not keep me in the emergency room. And so my husband was like, what? So he literally, my husband he had been a firefighter and a medic in the military. And so he was livid about the whole thing. So what he did was he put me in the back seat of our other car and on a ironing board, and he drove me to Houston, Texas, to a hospital in Houston, an hour and 45 minutes away.
My God, we thank God for him. He had all the right instincts, and so. And
I was in and out of it. And he took me to Houston, and the receiving doctor at the hospital was just livid about what had happened. Cause I could have had internal bleeding. I could have, And so the hospital in Houston, Memorial Hospital, treated me in Houston, and I was there for a while. And then when they released me from the hospital, I was still in bed, and I couldn't do things for myself. So I stayed with my parents for a while, and my husband worked in San Marcos so that we had somebody that could care for our kids, because they were so little at the time. Right. And so my parents stepped in and helped out a lot with that. But then my husband got transferred to Lubbock, Texas, where I live now. And he got transferred here. And so that's where the new doctor came into play. Okay. And he's the one that believed me that I actually was having feeling back in my legs, and that maybe God did heal me. Yes. And I did have the feeling back in my legs. So it's just miraculous. It was it was a miraculous thing that I started getting the feeling back to begin with, because I shouldn't have been able to do that. So, but I had to walk out my healing. I had to work, because I had been in bed for 4 months, and and I had to walk out my healing. And I know that there's people that have been miraculously healed out of wheelchairs that just get up and run, and that's true. But I still think that people need to know that God does heal us, and sometimes we have to walk out that healing, and we have to trust that healing, and that's where our faith comes in. And so just being grateful for that every day. Okay, I'm making a little bit more progress. So it wasn't easy, but
how long was this ride from St. Marcos to Houston?
It was an hour and 45 minutes.
That's a long way to be on the ironing board.
I just know, I don't even remember much about it. I just know what my husband did, that he did that and he strapped me on it. And I think he had a belt or something that he had that he strapped me down to this ironing board. And he was just, his military training and
Right.
And so,
Kind of like MacGyver.
yeah. But the sad thing is that 6 years later, I lost my husband to an auto accident.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. He died in 2000. He was killed in a automobile accident here in Lubbock 6 years later. So that was hard for me. That was another journey that God just walked me through, because some of the injuries that my husband sustained in the accident were similar to the ones I had.
Yes.
And so I went through this whole guilt thing. And, Lord, why did you save me? And why did you take him? And, but sometimes we don't have those answers.
We don't.
But we still have to be grateful and know that there's always a good in something that happens that's bad.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it's been a long time ago. So it's been a lot of years, but those are just a few of the things that are my testimony that God has done in my life.
My God. So how did your nephew, how did he get the healing?
So I actually was in and out of consciousness when I was in the car. I really believe that I had a life after death experience in the car. When I was when we had the accident, I just remember like floating in air. It was like being in air, like I'm floating in the air, and it was calm. At first it was dark. It wasn't like a fear, like a kind of fear. It was just a calmness. And I just was like traveling up to this light. And then I started hearing my name being called. My name was being called very, very low, and then it got louder. And then I kind of came to. My nephew was calling my name because he was pinned. His leg was actually pinned in the car between my seat, because his leg had gotten caught in the metal with my seat, and so he was pinned in the car, but he was laying in the floorboard, and so I was kind of in and out of consciousness, and they got my daughter and my son out of the car, and then they got him out of the car, but they had to cut his leg out of the car. So his leg was kind of cut and stuff, but fortunately it wasn't, broken or anything. But his neck was broken, and his first and second vertebrae were actually broken. But I didn't know that until I got to the hospital, when they took him to the hospital, because when they originally took us to the ER at the one hospital in San Marcos, we were in the same area in the hospital, and I was in and out of consciousness. But the whole time that I was in and out of consciousness, I'm just praying, Lord, just let the kids be okay. Don't let them be hurt. Let them be, because at that point I didn't know if my kids were okay, if they weren't okay, if I didn't know. And I just kept praying to the Lord, please touch them, please heal them, please don't let them be hurt, don't let them. But so what happened with my nephew was that I found this out later, is that they had taken him in to do CAT scans and an MRI, and his first two vertebrae were broken. He had no feeling from his neck down. But he couldn't feel anything from his neck down. He was completely paralyzed, like from his neck down. He couldn't move or anything. And they took him in and did that. And then my husband said that there was discussions about they were going to have to put him in traction, and they were going to have to start. They had started prepping him to do all these things, and I guess they were working on him. And about an hour after they had brought him in, he started feeling like the same feeling that I had had about the pain and stuff.
Yes.
In his toes and his hands. And so at first they were like, well, that's not possible or whatever. But then he started moving his fingers.
Okay. Okay.
He started moving his fingers. And so
Mm-hmm.
then they took him back to do another CAT scan.
Mm-hmm.
And this time when they did the CAT scan, it had calcified, like his neck had been healed where it was broken. Like when a bone is broken and it heals, it calcifies.
Mm.
That's what the image showed.
Huh.
And so, so they had this radiologist look at it again. And so that was a period of time. I guess it was another hour or so that went by. And so they came in and they were like, oh, well, it's double exposed or whatever. So they took him back in there to do it again. And then it was the same thing. And by this time, my nephew had already started his legs. He was already starting to move his feet and his legs and everything. Mm-hmm. Well, the doctor that had seen him, the radiologist, said, well, there was something wrong with the original film. It wasn't. I mean, he just came up with all these excuses.
Yes.
My husband and I know. I mean, we had the x-ray where you can see where his neck had been broken and that it had calcified. But he had he had a stiff neck for a couple of weeks after that and soreness. But after that, he's 42 years old. He will be 42 on Monday, and he hasn't had any problems with that since that time. And he was only about 12 at the time.
Right, that's what you said.
Yeah.
So God orchestrated a series of miraculous healing.
He did. He did from that whole accident. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he protected.
Because how do you tell? Was it it's your nephew? So is it your sister or your brother's
my
child?
Sister's child.
How did you guys announce that to them?
Well, my husband called her to tell her that we'd been in this accident, and that they were waiting. She was on her way there, and then he calls her and tells her, well, they're going to do all this stuff. And she was on her way to the hospital. And she, when she got there, then he's moving. And then he's like,
yeah. So she's more happy than anything, really.
Right. She's like, oh my gosh, that, I mean, it can't be anything but God.
Right.
Can't be anything but God that did it. So, but yeah, it was very traumatic for her because, and my husband said calling her to tell her that, we'd been in this accident was hard to do to have to tell her this is what's going on. I don't know exactly the diagnosis for sure. And then when he did, he called her and then so it was hard, but
my mind is blown. My mind is blown at the exactitude of, the timing of that incident. And even as you said, your daughter, the pacifier fell. And so he's just leaning to try to help, which initially I was like, oh my gosh, he didn't have his seatbelt. But thank God he didn't have the seatbelt at that moment and that happened. So he leaned. Otherwise, we may have been speaking right now about him in the past.
I know. It was just, God just orchestrated things in that situation. I think often we don't realize that there are times when things like that happen that God sees that that's going to happen, or he knows, or he just intervenes in that situation. He has angels intervene in that situation to protect us, to keep us from more harm than they are. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about Gary Woods. And he used to sing, and he was involved with his church and that kind of stuff. And he was in a horrific auto accident. They actually had pronounced him dead, and he had been dead for a little while. They had pronounced him dead, but then, and he talks about his story about going to heaven, and when he came back into his body, he had a lot of severe injuries from the accident, and one of them was that his vocal cords had been severed, like he couldn't talk anymore, and he couldn't sing, and that was the gift that God gave him. He was talking about how he was when he was in the hospital recuperating, and he couldn't talk, he couldn't communicate, but other than nodding or whatever. But he had been in the hospital for several months. And one day, God restored his vocal cords completely, and the nurse came in to talk to him about some things and doing some therapy and stuff with him. And all of a sudden, he started talking to her, and she just totally was, oh my gosh, she totally freaked out and was screaming and everything. And then we got the doctor and
Right.
all this. But the way he tells it is funny. But just to hear his story, and I had heard his story before I ever had my auto accident. And I guess just, that kind of came to mind when I was in the car, pinned in the car, and I was just praying over my kids and just, Lord, let the kids be okay. Just, I couldn't even move when I was in the car. I was totally pinned and I couldn't even move. I was just pinned in the car completely. And so all I could do was pray and just in and out of consciousness, just praying, Lord, just let the kids be okay. I don't know what my fate is right now. I don't know what because I was pinned in the car, so I didn't know. I couldn't feel anything, but I didn't know. I didn't know that I was paraplegic. I didn't know if I had cuts. I didn't know any of that.
Anything. Yeah.
So until afterwards, but
whatever happened to the lady that was she okay? Or they never even discussed it?
They never. All I know, I never met the lady. I never met anything. All I know is that she was fine. She didn't get any injuries from it. Her car was pretty messed up, but she didn't get any injuries from it. But they actually were going to give me a ticket for that accident because I was at a stop sign, and technically I pulled in front of her, but she didn't have headlights on. And it was getting dark, at nighttime when it gets dark. And her car was brown. My husband said her car was chocolate brown. So, and there's trees in San Marcos and like they're on Dallas and stuff like that. So I think it was just a combination of things.
You just couldn't see her.
I didn't see her at all when I pulled out in front of her. But my car was hit so hard. She was going 55 and a 25. And she hit me going 55 miles an hour. And when she hit me, the car spun and wound up down at the end of the street, which was the length of a football field, from what my husband said, where the car landed. But I don't remember any of that.
Thank God that
I don't. Wow. All I remember is the impact, and that was I don't remember the car spinning or any of that stuff. I don't remember any of that.
Now, so they didn't end up giving you the ticket?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't because of the other stuff. She didn't have her headlights on. She was going too fast. So really, they didn't ticket either one of us. But it was just the way. But here's the other blessing too. I'll share this with you too about this whole thing. So my hospital bills were over $1 million, and that was back in the early 90s. $1 million is a lot of money,
right? Regardless.
But back in the 90s, it was. So we had so many medical bills and so much expense for everything. So my husband and I wound up having to file bankruptcy because of the medical bills. But the hospital came back and paid off some of the debt that we owed. So we wound up not having to owe the hospital as much money as we did. So that was a huge blessing for us. Even though we didn't have to file bankruptcy, we still, some of that bill was paid off. And so that was a blessing for us, that we didn't have to claim that in the bankruptcy to have to make arrangements for paying some of it off. So it was
now my mind goes like that, because now you're bringing in bankruptcy into the situation, and I want to know, but I don't think that we have enough time to go into that today. I would hope that you would come back another time and talk about that.
Yeah. There's a lot in my life that has happened that God, I can just tell you stories of times that God has just blessed us and blessed us and blessed us. Little things that you wouldn't think other people would find significant, or give God the glory. But we know that God did it, and we know that God's got his hand in it, and I think that's the most important thing about being grateful, back to what we talked about at the very beginning, is just knowing and recognizing the things that God blesses us with in our life. It can be even the smallest thing, but we need to be grateful for it. So,
yes. So now let me ask you this, because I've met quite a few people who may have gone or who have gone through car accidents, and at this point they don't even want to drive again.
Right.
How did you overcome that fear? Or did you ever have fear?
Oh, yes, I did. I didn't drive at night for a long time when I got to the point. The first time I had to drive at night was when one of my kids got sick and I was
Yeah.
forced to have to take him to the hospital.
Right.
And so it was I was very difficult, but really and truly a lot of prayer and God just helping me to deal with it. And I just had to do it a little bit at a time, driving during the day first, and then being able to drive at night. So,
Okay.
but it's something God has to help you with. You have to put your faith in God and just know that He's going to take care of you and protect you and keep you safe. So that's really my advice. And that's what I did, just a little bit at a time, baby steps at a time, with increasing your faith and just trusting God.
Wow.
So
I just love this story. And I there's one of, this lady that I know that I call my sister really. And, yeah, she had a car accident. And so she hasn't found the strength to drive again.
it's
She
hard.
doesn't
It is
at all.
hard. But Satan wants us to be in fear so that we can't do the things that we need to do.
Right.
So I knew that I needed to get past that. It's kind of like the old saying about getting back on a horse when you fall off. You got to get back on right away. And of course, I didn't get back on driving right away because, I couldn't.
You couldn't.
Right. But I gradually did a little bit at a time, and I knew that I had to because it would limit me the rest of my life to be able to do things, to be able to work or to be able to take my kids places or do things for them. So I had to learn to do that. And it's a good thing that I did, because then when my husband was killed, where would I have been if I hadn't been able to drive? And I had that fear. So, but my motivation too was my kids, really. At the time. It was knowing that I wanted to be that mom that could take my kids and do things for my children and be there for them. And so I just prayed that God would help me with that fear.
And He strategically caused you, or allowed your child to get sick at night. And you're like, nope, mommy's mode. And he was like, no, we're taking him to the hospital no matter what. Right now.
And my husband was at work at the time because he worked at night. And so I didn't have anybody to help me with that. So I had to do it. And that really made me realize even more how important it was for me to drive, and that I needed to be able to conquer that fear. And I really believe often the fears that we have are related to something that God wants us to do. And Satan knows that if he puts that fear in our life, it's going to block what God has for us to do to move forward in what our purpose is and what our calling is. And often the fears that we have are attached somehow to that. If you look at it that way, go back and start looking at fears that we have. It's often connected to something that God wants us to do. Like one of my fears has been speaking in public in front of people. But God helped me with that.
Do you prepare you to overcome that fear? When you have to speak in public, what do you do?
Pray. Pray that God gives you His voice through you, that it's not you, it's Him speaking through you. And that's really what's always helped me, to give me peace, give me calm, because God gives us peace beyond understanding. So just to give us that peace and that calm, and to be able to hear His voice as we speak, that He speaks through us, to be able to do that. And really, I had not spoken a lot in public until my husband's died. And my husband died in a drunk driving crash. Oh, no. And he actually got in a car with a drunk driver and lost his life. So that was hard for me to know that. But God used that for me to speak to other people about that and start speaking in front of lots of groups of people from Others Against Drunk Driving and other stuff. So God gave me a voice through that tragedy to be able to the good in that was for me to be able to speak into other people's lives about it. But that he used for me to kind of start realizing that it was okay for me to speak in front of people, because a lot of times it's because God has something for you to say. So it was an obedience to God, really, that helped me to be able to start conquering that fear. And I get nervous still, even you might too as well sometimes, but I think just knowing that God's there and he's giving you that peace about it helps.
Yes, I remember one time, it wasn't even like a big venue. It was like a master class, or like a mentoring class or event. And I went to say something that I had, that I received out of the experience. And as I was standing there, the whole back of my head was heating up so much. I even turned around and tried to see if there was like a source of heat, and there was none. And I'm like, what is going on? I had never experienced that before. And then when I was done, I stepped back, and the people were like, oh yeah, they were inspired by what I had learned. And then I went back and gradually started living. I said, oh my gosh, so that's one of the manifestations of stress. What? I couldn't believe it. It was that was the worst I had ever experienced. But during other times, it's like you feel like your mouth is dry and all of that, or your heart pounds all the time, or even before I go, I have to go use the restroom 10,000 times before. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Come on now, let me get this. But we get the job done, and people are like, oh my gosh, you were so good, you did so well. I'm like, oh my, you just know it's not just by your own strength, because no, it's not.
No, it's not. It's God. It's God. And I think that if we stand in obedience to what he wants us to do, that even though we may have a little, maybe fear, but I don't know that it's really fear. I think it's just, I think we want to do well. And so that part of us as a human, we want to make sure that we do well, that we try to take it in our hands and not give it to God and say, okay, we're just going to do, and we're going to do it. So, but that's what we've done today. We've just put God at the center of it, and
we kept going.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. That would be the last question about the story that I want to ask you. How did you end up coping with your husband passing? Because you said it was similar injuries. It was so hard to take. But how do you actually, cope with it to where?
I didn't. Honestly, I didn't cope with it well at all. But because I just I kind of stuffed it because I had my kids. I had a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 6-month-old. And so I had to be there for them and my kids. My son, had a really hard time because he was really close to his dad. And so it was really hard for him. We went through a lot of him hiding in the bathrooms at school, and just lots of things for him dealing with his trauma. So I dealt with my kids' trauma, but not mine for a long time. And it was probably 8 months into my husband dying when I finally kind of had a crash about it. But I went through therapy and Christian therapy, and had people that just kind of surrounded me and loved on me and kind of helped me to deal with some of that. But I'll be honest, it took me a number of years to really, really let it go, and to just let God have him, because I still wanted him. And so I didn't, it was a lot of grief and a lot of pain and a lot of anger that I didn't realize that I had, that came out until my son said to me one day, Mom, you haven't smiled once or laughed since Dad died. All you are is mad.
Oh,
and I didn't
realize.
And I didn't realize it. I was like, okay, well then obviously I don't realize how bad it is, because we did a little therapy after my husband died with my kids and stuff, but I didn't realize I didn't really deal with it. But But that, it's amazing what God does. He uses your children sometimes.
As they say, out of the mouth of babes. Wow.
Yeah. But, honestly, through all of it, I took my kids to church. I took my kids to church every Sunday, no matter what. I still took them to church, and we prayed together as a family. And I tried my best to keep God at the center of my family. I didn't often do it as well as I should, but I tried. And now that my kids are adults, they appreciate that because they all are believers. They go to church. They, that's how I did it.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability too. Now, I'm going to shift gear because I know that you do a lot, and I want you to share with our audience, what are some of the things that you have been working on that you would like the world to know?
Well, it's just God leading me because I just turned 61 in March this year. So,
wow.
So I taught school for a long time. I was in the education field for a long time, and I've still worked some in the education field. And my area of expertise is working with people that have learning differences and learning disabilities. And that's just been my passion because I have a few children of my own that have dyslexia, ADHD, and autism that were diagnosed. And so my walk as a parent also inspired me as an educator to want to know how to help people that have those learning differences to be able to be successful in life, because they can be. It's just our society doesn't necessarily act like they can. And with that, I wrote a book this year, which is coming out soon, and I showed you before. It's called From Stuck to Started. And
I love that title.
It's about procrastination to motivation, helping you get from procrastinating to being motivated. But it's all spiritual based. It's Christian based. It's faith based. And it has a little workbook in the back of it that kind of guides you through every chapter, that you can write notes and you can journal through the whole process of walking through it. And it's just 6 chapters, but or it's 8 chapters, but it's just a small 8 chapter. But I did it that way because it has certain steps in it to journal and kind of work through the process. And it's about changing your mindset. So that's what that's about. And that's something that I've worked with people on for, when I got out of teaching in public school, I've taught online and tutored and coached online for the last 4 years. And that's what I do now. Aside from writing the book. And the other thing I came out with is this planner. It's an educational planner. And this is good I developed it for junior high through college students. And this planner has everything in it you could possibly need in it. It's all in one. That's one thing I learned from Terry Savelle, is to keep everything all in one. So it has a place for them to write notes and take notes, and to have their school schedule, and to have all the information for IEPs and 504s. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's for special.
Tell me.
It's for the special education. It's what they do, and for children that have learning differences or are struggling, to help them make modifications or accommodations for them. And all that information is in this planner, and all of it, I gave definitions for it. I gave a place for parents to put all the art information, that everything's all in one place, and that that people that go into college, they can use those accommodations, but everything's in one place for them. And it can be used for somebody that doesn't have learning differences too, but it has all those things in there. I have a doodle page in there. I have a place to brainstorm in there. All those things that we need when we're trying to work. But that's what this planner is. And so I'm trying to get this out and get this published, even though school's already started.
Yeah. I'd like to, when we invite you next time, I would like for us to, since you're still in the process of publishing it, like, so we can have the information as far as how to get it. Yes.
Okay.
Because I think it's necessary. A lot of people procrastinate, and as you said, it's changing the mindset.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is. Well, my book is coming out on Amazon. Hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, it'll be coming out on Amazon from Stuck to Started. I also have a website. It's daraleigh.com is my website. And you can get more information about my book and my planner on there as well. And my podcast is also on there as well. So,
could you please tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is called Design to Win, Ripple to Wave, and I have a YouTube channel that kind of goes with it, and it's called Design to Win, Rise and Learn. So the idea of my podcast is basically kind of what you're doing about gratitude, but it's about people's purpose, their identity, and how they found their purpose and their identity in Christ, because we need so much of that today. And what you can do to make a ripple to a wave in somebody else's life. What we do and what we put into somebody else's life, the seeds we plant can make a wave in somebody else's life. So that's kind of where what my podcast is about. And my podcast is aired on my YouTube channel as well. So my YouTube channel, I'm going to start doing more videos that's based on learning and growing and some of the things that I've been teaching about executive functions and some of the stuff that goes with the ADHD and the dyslexia and the learning differences and that kind of stuff. So,
wonderful. So, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll definitely put those information in the description on the YouTube channel so that, anyone can actually contact you. So, yes, you said you actually told us already how to contact you. It'll be like through your website and your podcast.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I mean, I learned a lot. Something that I want to ask you, last question. I know I said that was the last question, but if I don't, I will beat myself up. Did you find that speaking about, drunk driving and all those, did that also bring healing for you?
Yes, it did. One of the things I did do that really brought the most healing for me is, I don't know that you know this about me, but I've been a professional artist for 35 years.
Oh.
And so that's one of the things that I taught was art education. I taught art as well. But so I did an art exhibit around my husband's death back in 2006, and it had been 6 years since he passed. That was probably the biggest healing that I had, because it was a massive installation art exhibit, and a lot of it was I used automobile parts, actually car parts that I got from different wrecking yards and places, and I found car parts that were similar to the car that my husband was killed in, and so I put his obituary on there. I did anyway. I did an art exhibit around it, and then Mothers Against Drunk Driving saw it, and then I showed it, and I traveled with it and showed it several places. But it was very healing for me to do that, to be able to, put myself out there, to be able to show what my family and I had gone through. But it was very healing for me to do that part, for me.
So I got a lot out of your story. I got definitely the gratitude, definitely the miracles, definitely your point to know that, God can instantly heal you, but sometimes, and many, many times, you have to go through a process for you to actually have this healing actualized. So don't beat yourself up. Don't feel like whatever, because, you didn't get healed and somebody else just stood up out of a wheelchair. So long as you heal, that's like the main point to be especially grateful for. And, the process of healing as well, it's not like it's gonna, happen overnight. But if it is a process, but put yourself in that, that path of healing and do whatever God has you do for that to start taking place. And also surround yourself with people who can help you, can help your family maneuver during that hard time that you're going through.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your vulnerability.
I've enjoyed being here. Thank you for having me. I wasn't
Yes.
really sure what story I was going to share, but that's what God intended me first to share today. So I did. So
Thank you so much. And also for the advice, that you gave people. Just put yourself out there, even if it's one step at a time. Go
mhm.
ahead and, start driving little by little until you have full confidence again. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I can keep talking about lessons, but I let the audience draft out their own lessons as well. I know this was super rich. So thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying yes to another invite. We'll definitely invite you. I have this whole bankruptcy in my head. I want to know about that one. I'm very curious.
Okay.
So there you have you, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know you've been blessed by this. I know you've been impacted. If you want to contact me, there I will give the information down below. And so until we meet you next time, you be blessed. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Science of Gratitude podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe, share it, and leave us a review. Your support helps us keep spreading the power of gratitude. And until next time, stay grateful. God bless you.